Welcome back to Homesteading with the Zimmermans, where each week we give you another episode of what's happening here on our Northeast Iowa 21-acre homestead. My husband Alvin and I have been married for 25 years, and we have 7 children. 5 of those children still live at home. Our oldest 2 are married and no longer live at home, so this means we also have 2 son-in-laws and 1 grandson so far. So on our 21-acre homestead, we seek to preserve the self-sufficient lifestyle of our old order Mennonite heritage for the next generation. We involve the children in every aspect of the homestead, from raising and harvesting our own meat, gardening and preserving to fill the family's larder, or preserving the dairy from the family milk cows, plus all the many other skills that develop the character and integrity and relationships of a family that seeks to bring glory and honor to their Heavenly Father. Good morning, friends. I hope that you don't mind my sleepy face, but it is not yet 6 a.m. It's about 65 degrees, and there is a chance of sunshine this morning. So I knew that I had to get out of bed and enjoy the garden before the next round of rain showers moves in. So we have been so far having a very, very wet growing season, and it's been quite a number of years. I want to say at least 5 or more years since we've had such a wet growing season. It seems like the last 5 years, the beginning of the season especially, was very dry. And here you can see my grass clippings. So we would collect every last bit of grass clippings that we had and cover our crops, cover the soil to lock in moisture, right? And when it's a dry season, your yard doesn't grow as fast. But with it being so wet, we're definitely collecting every last bit of grass clippings to suppress weeds. Because if there's one thing that I forgot about having a wet growing season, it is that the weed pressure is severe. So there is a lot of weed pressure in my garden, but I can't get in to hoe or anything like that until it dries off a little bit, because if I start hoeing and it's so wet, I'm just compacting the soil, and that's not good either. So in addition to the weeds, everything else is just growing by leaps and bounds. You can see all this new growth on top of the raspberries, all that light green growth, and the corn has grown tremendously. The peppers here at the edge where I have my grass clippings, the peppers are happy. So one of the challenges of a wet beginning of the growing season is that things are more susceptible to blight. So my tomatoes are struggling a little bit. I was just thinking last night when I was down here that it's probably time for me to start treating them for blight, and I will use a peroxide mixture. I have to look up the ratio. It's in my book, The Heart of the Homestead. So I'll probably just go to my book and look at the ratio of peroxide and water. I will try to put it on the screen here for those of you that want to also start spraying your plants if you have a wet season to prevent blight. Now, the peroxide spray does not kill the blight, but it keeps it from spreading to the rest of your plant. Okay, here is how much the corn has grown, and I've got 2 different varieties of corn here. And my plan for today is in this space here, and you can see I've got all of this purslane coming up, and the only solution for purslane, my solution for purslane, is you have to cover it up. The more I try to weed it and take it out, the more viciously it comes back, because everywhere where you break a purslane leaf or anything, it will reroot and grow. So it's almost impossible to just weed it out. So what I'm going to put in here, so this is a different variety of corn. It's an heirloom, old-fashioned variety. So I'm going to put some pole beans in here, and then I'm going to put, in this empty space, I'm going to put some winter squash, and then I'll put cardboard down once that's up and put grass clippings on top. And that way I am not only keeping the weeds down, but also amending the soil, right? So a lot of folks will put like a plastic or a ground cover, you know, like a non-organic ground cover or a non-organic mulch. But if I'm going to be putting something on my soil, to suppress the weeds, I also want it to be amending my soil. So that's one of the reasons I'm not real quick to use a ground cover or plastic mulch or something like that. Also, if you use a plastic mulch, then you have to get water to it, and I don't want to. Okay, and then when you put water to it, then you have to put a fertilizer to it. But I would rather use an organic product that amends the soil, because plants that are grown, plants get their nutrition from the soil, and when we take care of the soil and make sure there's nutrients in the soil for the plants, then the plants in turn nurture, or the plants in turn give us more nutrients when we eat them. So that's kind of my long rabbit trail way of saying this is why I prefer to use organic matter as weed suppression over plastic or ground cover or non-organic versions of weed control. So I've got this volunteer cilantro here, and I'm going to allow it to go to seed and reseed itself, because that way I might have little cilantro that's ready when my tomatoes are ready. And also I've got a zinnia about to pop. I'm watching it carefully. I'm so excited. Here I've got my tromboncino squash ready to start climbing up. My hollyhocks are about to blossom. I've got some morning glories here just for nice. And over here on this side as well, morning glories, tromboncino squash, and zinnias. Okay, so that's our old-fashioned heirloom type corn. And here, climbing up this arch, I have my scarlet runner beans. And my cucumbers, I'm training those to go up. Those need a little help to learn to climb. But once they're going, like this one here, once they're going, the rest of the plant usually follows. But in the beginning, I kind of have to help them learn to climb. And then I've got some more scarlet runner beans over here. Those climb up very fast. All right, so here I've got my tomatoes, and today we are going to put these on some supports. Most of them are growing very well. You can see they kind of struggled for a while, but the new growth is looking good. And I had to replant some of them because some of them the hail knocked off and they just didn't come back. And I've got marigolds beside them. And a lot of my plants have a little bit of this on. I'm not sure why. Probably just because of the wet conditions. And see, here's one that I had to replant. Some of these are little because I had to replant them. And here's some that I'm like, maybe they'll grow out of it. I'm not sure what's going on with this one. There's a sunflower trying to come up. But I mostly left this one here as a study so I can gain some experience by what's going to happen to that one. So we're going to get some fence on. I want to say this one got some spray drift, but who knows? Who knows what really went on? And you can see we did plant a row of trees out there to prevent spray drift coming from that field. Here between the sweet corn and the tomatoes, I put in some watermelons. And then I'll fill this space up with some winter squash. Okay, so my peas are, there's a lot of peas here. And you can tell, you remember the fence went down in our storm the other week. And the boys and I have kind of set the fence back up to get the peas off the ground so they don't start blighting and rotting because it's so wet. But it looks like we're going to have a beautiful pea harvest. And these are kind of turning a little yellow at the ends too. And because it's just this end, it makes me think possibly there's spray drift that happened. Because, see, it's just this end right here. Anyway, I've got some weeds coming, but I'm not going to pull these weeds because that'll disturb the roots of the peas too much. But yeah, it won't be long. Probably next week we'll be picking peas. Depends on how warm the weather gets. So here's my snap peas. We've been snacking from these. So these snap peas were the ones that I transplanted because they came up so poorly and were spread out in a long, thin row. And so I just transplanted them down here at the end of the garden and put some supports on them. But the boys, when they were little, they used to call these snack peas instead of snap peas because you eat the pod and everything. Unlike these peas here, which we would just shell and keep the peas. The shells of these peas are not good for eating. They're really tough. Anyway, there's a bunch more weeds coming. But like I said, I don't want to pull them out because it'll disturb the roots of my peas too much. And right now, with my peas loaded with fruit, I don't want to stress my peas in any way, shape, or form. So then next, I've got my potatoes. These are red potatoes for fresh eating. And they are struggling a bit too. It's not the potato beetle. Little gnats are everywhere. But here's what I can tell. All the new growth is doing well. So whatever was bothering them, they've outgrown it. And that's generally my plan of action. Is I don't usually, you do anything right away. I just give it some time. And you can tell the new growth is doing well. But I've noticed for a couple weeks already that something, okay, I'm going to show you. I don't know if you can see that little spider. But very likely, whatever was eating this, aphids or gnats of some kind, that spider moved in and is now eating the pests. So the good news is all the new growth looks fine. Nothing seems to be bothering the new growth. So I would say that we're going to be good. And this is why I say that a thriving plant is your best defense against pests and, you know, diseases and things like that. Because most often, if you have good, healthy soil, your plant is going to overcome whatever is bothering it. Especially here in our region, because our pests freeze back so hard in the winter, and it takes a lot longer for our pests to for the soil to warm up enough for our pests to hatch out of the ground. And which brings me to, okay, I'll work my way over there. I've got some lima beans in here, some Crowder beans, some green beans, and then my onions. And if you were here for winter, you remember me saying that it's been a really hard winter, and we had some temperatures that were like 30 below, 20 below, with no snow cover. And that is why a lot of my perennial plants up around the house, like flowers, froze out. A lot of my blueberries froze out because there was no snow cover to protect the roots from 20 below zero, so the frost just went all the way down. But that also means that for the first time, probably in 8 to 10 years, we are not yet dealing with cabbage worms. And look, beautiful, beautiful. Those holes that you see in the leaves are not from cabbage worms. They are from hail that we've had. There is a cauliflower that got forgotten. I will be harvesting that one today. And I've got some broccoli to bring in today. I thinned down my carrots. You can see. So how to thin down carrots? I usually just ask myself, how big do I want my carrots to get? And then I leave that much space. If I want my carrots to get, you know, an inch in diameter around the top, I make sure to leave that much space between each carrot. Because that way, the carrots can mature, and when a carrot matures, it keeps a lot longer. Also, I'm working on this area. Here's where we put grass down at the very beginning of the summer, and because it's been so wet, you can tell that it's already so composted that weeds can come through. So on a dry year, we can put grass clippings down and it keeps the weeds down all summer long. But on a wet year, it composts so much faster. So we will be replenishing this with grass clippings as well. I'm also working on something called spooning the onions. I'll show you. So when the onions start forming bulbs, I like to scratch all of the soil away from around the top to give them space to grow a nice big bulb. Sorry, I can't help myself. I've got to pull weeds when I see them. So I've just scraped the dirt away to allow them to form nice big bulbs. Here's one that's doing well. All of those marks on my onions are from hail. We've had so much hail this spring already. Anyway, so when I'm done filming, probably gonna work on weeding the rest of this onion row. So here at the end, I've got another weed issue going on. The radishes are here and they're about done. So my plan is I'm gonna put some cardboard down here, and I'm not gonna wait to collect more grass clippings. I'm gonna go get some compost from our huge compost pile and put it here at the end. And then I'm probably gonna let my radishes go to seed because we really like the seed pods. But I think here at the edge of the radishes, I'm also going to put cardboard down and put compost in there because that sits a little low and a lot of water sits there. So I want to bring that up anyway. So I'm going to dump a bunch of compost in there. But first I'm going to put cardboard down. So here at the end I've got sunflowers and zinnias and a volunteer. Elvin's going off to work. I've got a volunteer hollyhock in here. And so I'm excited about what this is going to look like when it's in full bloom. Oh, I've also got some milkweed coming up in here, but I'm kind of battling that to keep it in its place. So my flowers here by my fence, the delphiniums, those tall purple ones, those are delphiniums. They're kind of hidden with the hollyhocks, but they need that support. Next year, I think I'm going to have to put tomato cages around my delphiniums because anytime we get a wind, especially if they're in full bloom like this, they tend to snap off at the bottom. And also, the boys play ball here. They play softball here in the backyard. And I've watched, and when their ball goes into the garden, they just plow in after it. So I think the delphiniums are a little delicate to be at the edge like that. And I've suggested, and I've helped them turn their, baseball diamond or their softball diamond so that they hit in a different direction and their foul balls don't go into the garden. And I've even suggested that if your ball goes into the garden, it could just be an immediate out, right? I'm not sure if they've made that rule or not. But I did support my hollyhocks. I put a little post in there and wrapped them up because when they get big and tall like this, rain can knock them over too. And I really like for my hollyhocks to bloom when they're standing upright. So the thing about hollyhocks is they don't stay true to color in their seeds, right? So the seeds that they drop couldn't be pink or white or red, anything like that. So last year this one was red, and I'm curious to see what color its babies are. But I was very happy to see a dark red one. And over here, in this side, I've just got a mass of baby hollyhocks. And hollyhocks are biennials. I think that's the right word. So it means that the first year, when they're from seed, they won't bloom. They just get established the first year. And then the second year, they bloom and drop their seeds, but then that plant doesn't come back, right? So they go through that cycle of establishing, blooming, and then dropping seeds for the next year. So this has been such a great morning, and the sun is going to shine for a little bit. That means that we've got to get some laundry on the line. Elvin and Mitchell have already gone to work. I'm going to go inside and get laundry started. And we have put the pool up, so the boys are swimming lots and lots, and they are sleeping really hard. And I always think our children grow and mature physically so much in the summer. And I think the pool, I give the pool credit for a lot of that. And we don't use chlorine in our pool, we use peroxide. So I think that also helps because peroxide, boosts the system and all of that. It boosts your immune system, all of that. Anyway, the sunshine just makes me happy. And I've shared this before. My garden tours are inspired by growing up in the Mennonite culture. Every time we would go to my aunt's or my grandma's house, there was a garden tour. Like all the mamas, my mom and the aunts would, walk to the garden, before lunch or after lunch, and they just talk about all the flowers and the plants, and they discuss different things and share ideas. And as a, toddler and preschool age and elementary age, I have memories of playing with my cousins, weaving in and out of, their skirts and listening to the garden talk, right? So my sisters and I, You know, we live in 3 different states. There's 6 of us. We live in 3 different states, but we're on this app. We all have this app called Marco Polo. And so we can do, you know, video chats with each other. And we have a chat that includes all of us. And we have been showing each other our gardens, and it's just brought me so much joy to see my sister's gardens, and it has inspired me because my sisters are excellent gardeners, most of them, and their gardens are just weed free and their edges are beautiful. And so I have enjoyed being inspired by their gardens and just the sharing, and this is what I'm growing. Look, I'm trying this and it's doing really well. So a lot of my sisters focus a little more on their flower gardens. They're not as passionate about growing their veggies as I am. And then I lack a little bit. I don't have as much inspiration when it comes to my flower beds. Just because for years and years I didn't have the resources to put a lot of energy into my flower beds. But I'm slowly getting that way. But unlike some of my sisters, I can't look at an empty space and imagine what flowers I would put in there. It takes me years, and I buy some flowers and I put them in and I'm like, no, I don't really like that. And then the next year I try something different. But some of my sisters are so talented that they can see an empty space and know exactly what they would put in. I just see an option to grow food when I see an empty space, or to graze cows. But that's okay. We're all different, and I love being inspired by seeing their flower gardens. And guys, this has been so much fun. Thank you for joining me on this virtual garden tour. I will see you on Saturday.